Supertramp Breakfast in America. My guest of the day is Vijay Kumar, a former officer in the Indian Police Service. He was the chief of the Special Task Force, the STF, that was behind the encounter of the dreaded bandit Veerappan during Operation Cocoon in 2004. A fascinating man. And this book that I've just read cover to cover, it's called Veerappan Chasing the Brigand. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Wonderful to see you, sir. Thank you for coming by and dropping by to my studio. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm excited and thrilled to be here with 94.3 Radio 1.
Tell me about Veerappan. Some people, the locals in the area adjoining the forests of Tamil Nadu in particular, look upon him as a hero. The other end of the spectrum, a lot of people in the police force look upon him as a petty criminal who got more attention than he deserved. The myth behind Veerappan.
He's like an onion, many layers, and each one is more interesting than the other. You see, for instance, the 1,000 quarries, granite quarries, the best in India, were closed because of the depredations by this bandit. But the villagers never blamed him. They blamed the government on the other hand, though they all lost the jabs. That means there is a mystery and mystique about him. And there was a bit of a Robin Hood, no doubt. And he tried to play the Tamil nationalism card. He's a clever guy, a criminal who could sort of metamorphose into a political field also. So there are many angles to him, and also a doting father and a very weak man towards the end physically. And like many dons who hand over the things to the number two, he became a little weaker to the end. So he is a very fascinating character and a very good tactician and strategist. I never tried to underestimate him because he was a worthy foe, like which I mentioned. But the way he began, it was a push and pull factor of the crime. Because of the police and forest officers and others, nobody is popular there. The petty authorities are never liked in a village so remote from any point of governance. From Bangalore and Chennai, they were the remotest part. So to these people who are looking up for somebody who can stick up, this guy looked like a man who can defy authority. And that was the charisma around which he built his whole crime world. And he could eliminate even a potential adversary, potential rival, and he was extremely competent in monopolizing the whole trade. And he was a terror, and he reigned over nearly 6,000 kilometers in Tamil Nadu, 6,000 in Karnataka, and about 2,000 in Kerala too. So he was a very interesting character, and I've showed many slices of what he was from my perspective.
Mr. Vijay Kumar, more conversation with him. Here's Rod Stewart. Some guys have all the luck. Rod Stewart, some guys have all the luck. Mr. Vijay Kumar, a 1975 batch IPS officer from Tamil Nadu, that cadre. He headed the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy in Hyderabad in 2008. Then served as the Director General of the CRPF from 2010 to 2012. Currently Senior Security Advisor in the Home Ministry. He's written this incredible book called Veerappan Chasing the Brigand, which has just been released by the movie actor Akshay Kumar, and I'm in conversation with the decorated officer.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
A prominent part of your book, sir, is about the kidnapping of the thespian, the legendary actor Raj Kumar. Now, at that point of time, things were really at the brink of violence, considering that Dr. Raj Kumar is looked upon as a legend in Karnataka. And ultimately, Veerappan let him go, but it was 100 plus days of an ordeal. Just recount that, sir.
It was the most terrible thing for two governments, and they were brought to the knees, and Supreme Court had to step in, and Abdul Karim, the father of one of the illustrious officers, Shakil Ahmed, went to the Supreme Court. And there was a bargain, a lot of quid pro quo was going behind the scene, but I don't blame the government for it, because it's very easy to blame and put the blame. Like I mentioned in the book, even for a single hostage, a country like Israel, so formidable and so strong, they were willing to, in Shaliat deal, SHALIT, Shaliat deal, nearly 1,000 people were exchanged. So these things do happen, so without condemning or without trying to be derisive, I have tried to give the right perspective, how Rajinikanth tried to step in, how the whole states were on boil. Kaveri divided the whole states, and this guy was trying to say that we want the statue of Thiruvallur in Bangalore. All sorts of issues were raked up, and T.J.S. George, a famous journalist in Bangalore, he called it the 10 Commandments. And apart from the 10 Commandments, there was the 11th Commandment, which was under the table, and all sorts of rumors were as well. And STF was asked to go on traffic duty, and they didn't do a good job because they were not trained to handle the traffic. I mean, that's on the lighter side. So it was a very difficult difficult days for both the state governments, and all the political people were at a loss what to do, and both the states were pitted against each other. One state saying that the intelligence report we gave was not given a due regard, and so on. And earlier there was interesting input by an officer called Hrishikesh, a CRPF officer, an anthropologist by earlier education, and he had predicted this is going to happen. And it was quite unfortunate. Those 100 days were most terrible, and S.M. Krishna, a respected politician, chief minister, he personally told me these were the worst 100 days of his life. So it was absolutely, everything was pell-mell, and the way it was finally handled, a lot of people had to go and negotiate, and finally a very clever manipulation of the fear that this man may not survive if he is allowed to continue in the forest was one of the tilting points. But what all happened behind that 11th commandment is a mysterious thing. So I have tried to
and you have said it in the book. You've said that perhaps money exchanged hands, one would never know, but colossal amounts of money, maybe from the family's side, maybe from people who were standing to benefit by this thing.
Yeah, there are, he was a very highly regarded figure, icon in Karnataka. If anything happening to him, the whole state would have been in boil, and it was something which that kind of turbulence was unacceptable. So therefore, there could have been a quid pro quo, but only thing is I was not able to, I'm not an investigative guy, I didn't want to make too much of sensation out of it, but I've been practical. I've pointed out there has been a suffusion of 500 rupee currency in certain parts of Tamil Nadu. Till then they have not seen 500 rupees in those shanties and village markets. So how is that? This was more than a coincidence, and there were a lot of other people interested and anxious to get him out. So therefore it's quite likely that something could have happened, though there is absolutely the final proof was not there.
Messages and back with the excellent K. Vijay Kumar talking about Veerappan. Black Horse and the Cherry Tree, KT Tunstall, one of the finest officers of the IPS, K. Vijay Kumar, the man who was the chief of the special task force known as the STF, which two state governments, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, put together, the man behind the encounter of the dreaded bandit Veerappan during Operation Cocoon in 2004. He's written Veerappan Chasing the Brigand. I'm talking about that and more.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Operation Cocoon. I mean, that was the most eventful night of your life. You must remember it like it was last night. Talk about the ambulance. Talk about the preparation.
The ambulance was a very deliberate choice because we had the other options of having a government vehicle, a press vehicle, or a TV vehicle, and things like that, which are not normally clinically and very thoroughly searched by the police people. So therefore, how to bypass the various cordons which are already there, and then and coincidentally he had an eye problem, and he himself suggested he would like to have the surgery. So we put all this together and had this ambulance got ready. The way it was prepared for about 5-6 days under the eagle-like eyes of two people, our technical geek and one more guy, the driver himself, is I've described. It was taken to a very ramshackle workshop in Coimbatore, and very quietly it was done, and it was earlier the intelligence vehicle of STF. When it was brought back, the same driver was made to sit on that, and they travelled. It was a very dramatic arrival in Dharmapuri, where the longest night and the biggest briefing of my career happened. And when it was finally launched, why the word cocoon? Because it was something just off the sleeve. Me and Kannan, one of our casual chats, we decided normally from the cocoon the butterfly goes away to freedom. In this case, the word cocoon is one to say that you confine somebody or cloister somebody, sequester somebody, or hold somebody. So in that way we use the word cocoon, and it was actually the word came to our mind only a couple of days before 1 week before actually, when the work started. So the journey was very eventful in the sense that there was a password between them how to exchange the code, and the code was a lottery ticket with 6 digits, and the digits had something called 007 also, interestingly. And also it was another coincidence that the vehicle number 0071, if I am not mistaken, or something like that, 00771 is also part of that whole series. That was the vehicle number of Kannan's father, and Kannan was my deputy, and a top class Gizmo whiz kid and an intelligence man, and he was my number 2, and he was the linchpin of the entire operation. So when he saw that lottery ticket which was passed down from Veerappan's man to us, he said, this is fantastic because this is the number of my father's car. It served us for nearly 2 decades without even stopping once. So I guess I got a good feeling about the whole thing. So many interesting things like that happened, bit of coincidences, a lot of strokes of luck which came into place, and in spite of certain actions which seemed to be interfering with our well-planned cocoon operation, on the last day there were some interferences there, and we were able to somehow get over them, and finally the whole thing happened.
How do you react when people criticize and say, oh my God, he was already dead by the time you got there and things like that? Do you laugh it off? Are you skeptical? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a mix of all. Sometimes I feel that personally it doesn't matter. I just sort of shake off that muck which falls on me. But it is about the team. It's not about me. When they're talking to me, a brickbat or a bouquet given to your leader is actually delivered, meant for the others. So when these shrapnels, when these pieces hit me, I feel that it is meant for the others. So I try to defend their cause, because these are the guys who, not caring for their own safety, absolutely selfless, chaps willing to forgo their marriage and hanging on for 15 years, 20 years. And many of them got backache and problems because they were carrying this 20 kg load for days and days up and down those hills. It was not an easy task for an ordinary. It was not a lily-livered people could not have said. Jungle fight is an extremely complex thing. And these are the volunteer group, and they have suffered so long. We had so many sacrifices and nobody to stand up for them. So in that context, I feel little bad that this happened. That's why I defend. For me personally, it matters little, because the job has been done, mission accomplished, forget about it.
K. Vijay Kumar, sir, the IPS officer, the chief of the special task force that is behind the encounter of Veerappan. We're talking that and more. Hrishikesh Z on the playlist. This is Stay. Hrishikesh Z, Stay. He started off as a sandalwood smuggler and then went on to become the bane of the existence of two states, Karnataka as well as Tamil Nadu. Veerappan, and the man who finally got him, along with his able team, K. Vijay Kumar, is in studio. Veerappan Chasing the Brigand is a gripping account of those few days and leading up to the capture of this man, and an extensive period of time when he was just playing a cat and mouse game with two state governments.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
The back of the book also has a very chilling account of how Veerappan beheaded a gentleman called Srinivas and then played football with the head. This is obviously a very cruel clinical man also.
That was very touching and very poignant moment for me. When I heard about this, I was elsewhere. I was on some other duty, but this had a very deep scar on my psyche. He was not the only one, but he was one of the most fantastic characters in this whole book. And he was a gold medalist and an outstanding officer of the IFS, and he wanted to join the STF. STF was strictly speaking a police force, but he was an exception. He said, I will join the STF. And what was interesting about this guy was, in spite of being an IFS officer, deputy conservator of forest, he, like an ordinary constable, he was able to heft the rucksack and slog like anybody else. He didn't ask for any extra bit of luxury, and he was like anybody else, carrying his own 2 liters water and 10 kg, 15 kg of thing, and with a rifle. And he made his soft and hard approach was something which Veerappan was petrified about, because he went and camped in his own village, Govinatham, and opened a camp, medical camp, and he was a specialist in Ayurveda, homeopathy and indigenous medicines. And Veerappan's sister Mariammal became his employee because she saw the good work done by him. So he was getting into the hearts and minds, and it was completely wrecking. It was like thrusting a grenade into the mind of Veerappan, and he got shattered. And he told his younger brother Arjunan, to go and entice him to tell him that I am going to surrender. And the way the surrender happened was something very, very touching. That early morning, people told me when I went to the village, there were unusual sounds in the village, including the cow, the way they were bleating and noises, peculiar noises. And this man got up at 3 o'clock, had a bath, and 5 o'clock he left. And one by one, the people who accompanied the retinue dropped out, and finally he and Arjunan stood. And suddenly from the bushes, various heads came up, and Veerappan abused him. And that is when Srinivas realized the trick is about the trick, and thereafter there was no looking back. He finished him, and the skull was finally retrieved by Shankar Bidri, a very illustrious officer of Karnataka, after nearly 2.5 to 3 years. And it was a very, very sad moment. I went to the temple which he had contributed and built, and there was another interesting man about this man. He didn't want to show that he is doing everything. He made a major contribution to the village renovation, but he made the people also contribute little bit, so that it looked like a community involved in that. He was such a wonderful man. He was not an ordinary outstanding student of forestry or just an administrator, but he had a knack of getting into the hearts and minds. He would have been an outstanding political leader, or he could have been outstanding in either field. So his loss was something personal, though I had never seen him. I only heard of him. So I went to the temple, and I swore that I will come back to the temple once his mission is over. People questioned me or asked me about, why are you so extra religious? It's not extra religious. There are a lot of temples involved there, and a lot of places where this injustice happened. So whenever I went there, I prayed that once this operation is over, when the vindication is done, when justice is done to the people, I'll come back. So I had a series of Chota pilgrimages unannounced in these places.
Wonderful. It's Mr. K. Vijay Kumar, the man who captured Veerappan along with his team, the able IPS officer. Messages and back. What a classic, Africa with Toto. I'm with somebody who I consider a stalwart of the IPS, the chief of the Special Task Force, STF, that was behind the encounter of the dreaded bandit Veerappan. It was Operation Cocoon, which he headed in 2004, and a really incredible, honest account of Veerappan and his life. And this particular capture is a book called Veerappan Chasing the Brigand. K. Vijay Kumar has written that, and here he is.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
The proceeds of this book are going to a worthy cause. Tell us about that cause.
Actually, it was initially kept a little bit of a secret, but then it leaked. The press hounds got to know it. One sniffed out and asked me, so I had to disclose it. I am intending to spend it on either side of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, those villages which are most affected, especially for the education and skill development. I don't know how much money I am going to make it. That's why I become unabashed now, and I'm asking the people to buy more and more so that I make more money and pass it on. And all proceeds which come from this book and the translations, which are also in the offing, will also be towards this.
A lot of people would turn around and argue, saying, how was he allowed to roam these jungles for years and years and years without having accomplices in the system? For example, every time there was a hostage negotiation, there used to be, I think it was Nakiran, Gopal, who used to go in, who was a journalist. And he eventually, at the end, even during the Rajkumar incident, you do say that he asked for another negotiator because all of a sudden it seemed as though he didn't trust Gopal completely. Talk to me about his system of informers and the people who were negotiating with him.
It's called the silo operation or cutout operation, where A and B will not know what C and D is doing, and A will be linked to D, but thereafter the link will be cut off, to make it very simply. So you look at Beirut, you look at any other spot of insurgency is there, or militancy is there, or terrorism is there, where the top terrorists wanted to have access to the press. It is always one way. So Veerappan simply followed that. When you say that Nakiran had access, that was a time when our intelligence also said that somebody is entering, but we were asked to keep away. So when thing is made one-way traffic, it becomes very smooth for him. And it is always the case that when he wanted to meet, he could meet, and when he wanted to shut off, he did. When you're talking about how did he hang around for so long, indefinitely for nearly 20 years? That's a very interesting question, normal question many layman is likely to ask, and it's absolutely justified. But I've given in many chapters how it happened. In a chapter on infiltration, in which very successfully my predecessor Nadraj, ADGP Tamil Nadu, now a political leader, MLA in ADMK party, how we put 4 people who were given free boarding and lodging by Veerappan. So Veerappan was absolutely gullible at that point of time, so we could trust our own people. His potential assassins were fed by him for 21 days. This is an incredible story. But what happened, because they were able to stay with him, Veerappan became absolutely cautious. He tightened his inner circle, and he did not allow these peripheral fellows to hang around. So that made my operation much more complex. So originally he had 150 people, including women, children, and it was like those, the Indian gangs which were there. General Crook went and tried to capture them in USA. Ultimately, when they found that was a gang of 29, including ordinary old women, old men and children, they were astonished that the entire US army was after people who were looking like ragtag army. It was a similar thing here. You may try to trash them and say that, just be dismissive about them, but the fact of the matter is they know the area like the palm of the hand. They've got the local contacts. In every village there are eyes and ears, and their intelligence system was little better than us. So therefore, when this infiltration happened, Veerappan became more suspicious, and he had only 4 people in the core gang, but that made it more complex, because smaller the core team, greater is the difficulty for us to spot him. So we had an extremely challenging task, which is explained in part 4 of this book, and which is focusing on what happened in Operation Cocoon.
It's Brian Adams, 18 Till I Die, a last leg of conversation with K. Vijay Kumar, the officer who was responsible for Operation Cocoon, Veerappan Chasing the Brigand, the book. Timberland, Kerry Hilson, The Way I Are, and I tell you this, movies have been made on this, but none as gripping as this novel, Veerappan Chasing the Brigand, written by K. Vijay Kumar, really the authority on writing this book, because he was behind the encounter of the dreaded bandit Veerappan during Operation Cocoon in 2004, former chief of the Special Task Force set up by the governments of Tamil Nadu as well as Karnataka.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
We talked about select members of your team, but who are the people who were close to Veerappan, his inner circle?
His inner circle, the most important man was Sethakuri Govindan, who was his distant cousin, whose brother was part of the police team which got ambushed and 22 people died. That was the reason why on a Good Friday it happened in 1993, and that was the reason for the STF to be made by Jayalalitha, the then Chief Minister. Apart from Chattukuri Govindan, there was two more people. One was a kind of a cook, and the fourth man was even more peripheral. It's very interestingly, when four people were in the core team, Veerappan and Govindan used to sleep separately and not allowing the other people to know. So they had an inner group. That means they had only a buddy. It was just Veerappan and two. But they had few people who were hanging around from the village. They used to come and meet them in secret and provide them provisions, rations, other supplies, and so on. And it was this weakness that we tried to exploit during Operation Inundation towards the end. If you talk about the outside world, he had a very fringe elements from political parties who used to come and meet him, and his circle was absolutely tight, and he was a wired nomad for some time, meaning he had access to cell phones, he had access to night vision and things like that. But when he started using the cell phone, he got into the danger of our trapping him, and about which I mentioned how we chased him on helicopters and things like that, but still he managed to escape, and why it happened. So towards the end, he gave away all technology, and he was living strictly in a cave kind of situation, running from pillar to post, crossing the river whenever convenient into Tamil Nadu. And if you look at the forest where he had stayed, it was semi-deciduous, sometimes in between thorns and rocks also he stayed. So he had a very Spartan, very difficult, very tough living. It was like chess on heels. We were chasing him all the time. He was making his move and we were making our counter move.
I've read the book, but for people who haven't read it, let's have some authors speak. What to you is Veerappan Chasing the Brigand, the book?
Like a mother will always love her babe and said this is the best. So I would say it's a very interesting book. If you want a thriller, there it is. If you're talking about killing fields and ambushes and deaths and very gory things, it is there. And strategy and tactics, if you're talking about leadership, even there, how the teams were formed and how I was just a member of the team. I am not pretending to be the leader and most superior man and trying to strategize completely. How I took the inputs from even the lowest of the last man. So from no clear pecking order was there. Anybody with intelligence could come to me. A man with A-class intelligence can come to me even if he is holding a C-class post, then the other way. That was the philosophy we followed, and that was one of the turning points. In fact, you will see the important nugget of information, the most critical one, came from a constable, not from very senior officers. Correct. That is also there. And in short, there is something called 1 minute drill which will be fascinating for anybody. There is 1 minute manager series, many would have read. There are other 1 minute drill, but there are some drills I mentioned which will be a takeaway for anybody working in any profession, I think. Like I said, it may be the mother's bias.
Now, our listeners are very active on social networking. Is there a website? Is there a Facebook page, Twitter handle that people can reach out to?
I am on Twitter, Hrishi. I am also author Vijay Kumar at gmail.com. Author Vijay Kumar is another way they correspond with me. I am very glad that most of them have been very generous with me, but I'm also appreciative of those who gave 3 stars and 4 stars also. And there was one guy who gave me 1 star and says all trash, all cooked up. Doesn't matter. I like to take criticism with all even-handed. It has been extremely pleasant talking to Hrishi, and I must tell you, radio jockeys to me or radio host to me or something like an ambulance driver or a fighter pilot or a stand-up comedian who like a cop has to think on his toes. So it has been extremely happy. I am extremely delighted to be in your company today.
What a wonderful thing to say. Thank you, sir. Take care of yourself. Yeah. Bruno Mars, Runaway Baby.